Okay, hey, we are
Hey,
live.
sorry.
What's
Wow.
up? I was
And
just
then we're
staring, like
dead silent.
disassociating from the camera.
Yes.
Oh gosh. What's up, everybody? Once you get here, say hi in the comments. We're gonna just a couple moments for people to get here. We have been off the air for sporadically for a week or two, so we'll give everybody a chance to get in. Oh, you know where I didn't share this? Discord. Oh, I always forget about.
We haven't been consistent about being in there lately.
Yeah, that's true too. We should be more in there.
Yes, but also because I'm on it from my phone, it's hard for me because then I don't use my phone and I need to use my phone.
Yeah.
So for working days, like I gotta maybe load it to one of my other phones. Maybe that's what I'll do.
Maybe that'd be
Or
a good idea.
actually use my other phone for work.
So
Not
you
my
guys,
personal
if you
phone.
see this extra face on the screen, this is Chris Nelson. He's with the La Plata County Humane Society, and he is joining us today for an excellent conversation. But of course, you guys know we got to get into the beginning stuff first before we get into the real stuff. What's up, Alanis? We've missed you.
Alanis, I just saw you pop up, I think, my TikTok. Right? Or yeah,
Maybe.
just through different. Yeah, I was like adding people from my contacts. So she popped up.
I miss y'all so much.
You popped up.
It's about that time, you guys. You are about to get highly educated with the Cannabis Closet podcast with Canna Queen and MJ. This is an adult content show. No limitations on subject, language, or actions. Opinions, views, and expressions may or may not be that of the hosts, their guests, and their subsidiaries. If you're not sure, don't worry, we'll tell you. And if you're still not sure, just look at our faces. It's pretty obvious. It's time to get this session started. Thanks for rolling up and showing up, and enjoy the show. You guys, thanks for joining us. We got Maisie on here. Thanks for joining us, Maisie. She says hello to Chris.
Hi.
So let's go here. Kelly's here. Nex is here, of course. Thank you guys for joining us. So we'll just get started. We'll just get right into it. First of all, I want to say it is Transgender Remembrance Day today, or was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday.
It was yesterday.
We'll just consider it a week-long event because we should always, actually a lifelong event, we should always keep these individuals in our heart and look out for them if we are in a situation where we can be an ally and protect them. Because honestly, trigger warning, of course, the suicide rates of transgender people and also the harm rates from others of transgender people for just living normal life is so high and exorbitant. It's kind of crazy. And you gotta be a good human. And if you see a situation, be kind and be protective in those situations. I certainly won't fucking
And if
deal
you're
with any of
afraid,
that shit.
educate yourself. If you're scared, you don't know, you don't understand, educate yourself. There's so many resources that like it's not something you grew up with. That's okay. Doesn't mean that you can learn and love,
Do you know how easy it was for people to call me by a different last name in the Navy once I got married? In the Navy, have they been calling me the same last name for 5 years? It's really easy. It's just simple. It's just respect if somebody's doing something, you might not listen. I'm not telling you have to agree with what everybody else is doing in their lives, but these are humans living human life in their human life. They're living their human life, not yours, not somebody else's, theirs. And they get to live that life just like you get to live your life the way that they want to, the way that they feel most comfortable, because we only get one chance. Well, I don't necessarily believe that. I think we're all coming back eventually. But in this life, in this cycle, you only get one shot at it. And so why not be happy in it? Why not do everything in your power to be yourself? This guy said the Can Evangelist is here. Thanks for doing this. What's up, Can Evangelist? I love it. I love it. Preach, preach. It's the only church I'm going to go to.
Right? Though that cannabis brand, I cannot figure that out. The more I stared at that flyer, I was like, I don't know if they're joking they really are advocating for, like, you know, because I say that all the time. I was like, hey, you can have a group that's you know, die hard for Jesus and still uses cannabis. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
not
We
the
saw
devil's
that
lettuce.
on.
It's not the devil's lettuce for everybody. I'm not giving the name a shout out, but
Yeah,
it's weird.
yeah.
Because they're like, yeah, they got, it's like they're
But
using
Jesus smoked
biblical
weed. If you believe in
references.
Jesus, Jesus smoked weed. He's a whole
Yeah, it's an
hippie.
anointed healing oil. Like, come on, let's be real. Here's the deal,
I'm
I'm a
fully
stone cold
agnostic.
atheist.
I
Yeah,
believe in something bigger than me, but not necessarily that. So atheist, agnostic, spiritual, whatever religion you choose, that's fine with us. Just be kind to other people, and
living beings.
don't expect other people to live by your rules. By your rules. Are you asking us what our take? Can you ask that question again? Because I feel like I'm missing. If
Yeah.
it's about Missouri, we can recap it. But we don't like it.
I did see an article or a statement
Answer.
today that you know, lawsuits are being filed, all the things.
Yep.
You know, they're the different channels are being taken by the advocates, and they were actually it was citing medical patients. So we're not happy. So
People are asking questions in the Missouri Movement page, I think it is, or the one of those. And I see what you're saying. And everybody's like, have you read the recreational laws? That's going to be outlawed. That's not going to be a thing anymore under these new recreational laws. So they're going to lose access to things like growing hemp and being able to, when it's federally legal, come back into the state with outside weed or cannabis sources. They're going to get in trouble for that. It didn't end prohibition because you can still have interactions with the police on based on what you're carrying, what you're smoking, whatever. It's not an automatic expungement, and it's going to fuck with some of you home growers too, and you caregivers. Like the caregiver program, the medical side of this, they now have to grow their patient plants in a completely separate area than they grow their own plants.
Who has the capability to do that as a care? You know, that's just crazy. I don't. I don't. We did do a recap.
Yeah,
you can catch it on the show.
We're not going to get into. But as far as like
the term weed doesn't upset us.
It doesn't upset us. It has its place in time.
Right. But also, like, people use it as a positive term too. Hey, you're growing like a weed. You can grow like a weed. I had a friend who didn't know they were trying to, you know, germinate their plants or whatnot, and they didn't know that one blew behind a bush and it grew up, and they did not monitor water, sunlight, shade, anything. It snowed on it. They didn't realize it was there until it snowed and everything around it died. And they were like, oh,
that's a resilient plant.
It was lovely. And so weed was demonized and termed wrong, made a bad term by who? The companies.
Yeah.
You know, oh, you don't want those dandelions. Dandelions are better than your stupid weed killer.
Yeah, absolutely. I had an accidental growth one time. That sounds off if you don't hear this all in context, but when I was living in Greece, I was in the Navy still. So my boyfriend at the time smoked weed, and he would go on my back porch and roll one up and smoke a blunt or smoke a joint or whatever. And one day he was rolling one up and there was a seed, and he threw it into an empty pot that was on my back porch. It used to have a Christmas tree in it, but of course that Christmas tree died. And so there was just like an empty pot. And then we had like rainstorms, which happens out there. Like in the morning, it would rain in the summertime. And then in the evening or in the afternoon, by afternoon, it would clear up. You could go to the beach. It was great. And so one day I didn't look out there very much. One day I opened the doors and that thing was as tall as me. And I was like, you got to come get this. Get your brother to come get this off my porch right now before I get in trouble. Like, please remove this plant. And they were looking at it. And, back then they were looking for certain characteristics in the leaves. So they were like, these leaves have red veins in them. So that means it's going to be a female. And so I don't know whatever happened to it, but they got it off my damn porch. I was like, I'm going to get in so much trouble for this. You got to get it out of here. I was in a rental that the Navy set up for me. Like,
I think about that. One of my, the money tree plants look like, can look like a, to an unknowing person. I've had someone ask me, is that a weed plant? No, it's not. Just because it has the 5-prong leaves or whatever, 1, 2, 3, or however the setup is.
I accidentally grew a tomato plant like that one time too. In Durango, one year tomatoes started blooming on the opposite end of the box where we planted tomatoes. Those were blooming too, but some other tomato came up from there. But it was because when we turned the soil, there were like dead plants in there, and that's what happened. So moving along. Next thing, why am I mad today? Narcissists. That's it. Narcissists suck. Y'all can suck my dick. That's what I feel about you.
If you need an explanation, you can join us in Discord, and
we'll be happy to give you the rundown.
Now, there's a difference between narcissistic tendencies and narcissists. So just avoid narcissists.
Honestly, avoid narcissistic tendencies if you can. But
you can. But we all, we all have self-love. We all, but we're not assholes.
Nah. And here's the thing. You're going to fall in love with them because they're tricky. They're tricky little animals. You're going to fall in love with them. Tricky. You're going to build a relationship with them. And then one day they're going to do something and you're going to be like, and you're going to say, hey, don't do that. And they're going to blame you for it. And when that day comes, I need you to pack your shit or get in your car, take your blunts, get the fuck out, because that's not going to change. That is your sign.
They will double down.
Double down. Ruin everything. Burn down all the ships. Sink them to the bottom of the ocean. Whatever ship you're in with them, relationship-wise, friendship, situationship, romantic relationship, whatever the ship is, they will sink it. And they don't care if you're on it.
Keep your ship together.
That's right.
Keep your ship together. And there's easy ways to do that. Simple ways to do that.
Keep them like at arm's length, like this, like far.
It's like watching a wild animal. If you know that they are, and you're watching from the outside of the.
Okay. The other thing I'm mad about today too is that the government has yet again ruined my holidays. So won't get too much into that, but basically my spouse is going to be out of town for both of the holidays this year.
I just don't think it's just not fair. It's just
again, second year in a row. So fuck you, government.
Yeah.
All right. It's Transgender Remembrance Day. Also, we want to say, I know, babe. We want to say that our hearts and healing vibes go out to those in Colorado Springs. We had a tragic mass shooting this week. 5 people have passed. 18 were injured so far. That's the report. Hopefully they all pull through, and it's senseless. The guy is related apparently to, I guess his grandfather is part of the GOP's official that is, or a person who is running for office. And they followed a lot of that rhetoric. Listen, vote for who the fuck you want to vote for, but there's only one party that spreads negative hate rhetoric about others. And when I say others, I mean not white and not men. And that's what happened. And that's where it is. And also a group of unarmed citizens did more at that nightclub to save people than the police in Uvalde did for those children. So just like when we're talking about law enforcement and praising law enforcement, listen, I just don't have it in me. The Colorado Springs and surrounding other departments do not do anything about hate speech in those cities. They can have bumper stickers that are threatening, like violent hate speech. They can put signs in their yard that are disparaging and hateful and violently hateful towards those communities. And what that does is it encourages people like the young man who went into that bar, the only safe space that they have in Colorado Springs. They can't even afford to do a pride festival or parade. They can't even do that. The only safe space these individuals had was taken from them because of this rhetoric, because of this.
So I have the names.
Yes, let's honor those people, please.
So this was from Club Q, and the 5 people that died were Kelly Loving, Daniel Aston, Derek Rump, Ashley Pugh, and Raymond Green Vance.
Sending love and healing vibes to their family. This is their families. This is unnecessary violence against people who are just out living their lives. So
yeah.
It's gross. Anyways,
so let's move on to our wonderful guest that is here to join us and bring some smiles to our faces in the sadness. So
yes.
When I have a rescue that is has brought me very much joy and has kept me from some serious down times. And so let's talk about why it's important to adopt.
Yes, adopt, don't shop, first and foremost. Both of our dogs here are from the La Plata County Humane Society. As she said, she rescued or she fostered Lady and failed. I fostered Karma.
We like foster fails.
I foster failed. I was a foster success with one dog, but then Karma and I cried. I had a whole breakdown when we had to give Whopper back to you guys. I had a whole thing. It was right before 420 that year. I remember I was so heartbroken. I knew he wasn't our dog, but I was so heartbroken because he was such a joy to have in our house.
That's all right. I saddled you with Karma.
Saddled me with Karma. She's a good girl.
She's a good girl.
She is a good girl.
Super smart.
She sure is. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. And I just, after the sort of sad topic we were talking about there before, I would just like to say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is for everybody.
Everyone.
Doesn't matter what color you are, everything. Leave people alone.
Please.
Let them do their thing.
Mind your own business.
We're the human race. We're all the same.
Let's talk about dogs and cats.
Yes.
That's why I'm here. Maybe I can lighten the mood a little.
Yes, please do. But I do want to talk about some heavy stuff too.
I have some heavy stuff. Yeah, but that's fine. We can do that. First of all, again, it's great to be here. It's good to get the message out. Yes, please adopt, don't shop. Shelters are seeing unprecedented levels of population this year. It's pretty bad. It's not as bad as it was pre-COVID, close to it. But what happened is in 2020.
I know what you're going to say. I was going to ask the question.
There was a crazy year. It was a beautiful year for animal shelters. Everybody stayed home. And what that meant was, while we were essential workers and had to be there, everybody wanted to adopt or foster, which most of those fosters turned into fails. They adopted. And the shelters were empty nationwide. I remember one point in June of 2020 where we had about 14 dogs and I think half a dozen cats in the building. And that's just unheard of.
That's crazy.
And the other cool thing was with people staying home and working from home, dogs stayed home. There weren't, if you go to work and you let your dog out every day, and you come home, and that goes on in our county a lot. We're
Yeah.
pretty rural, but you just let your dog out and you go to work 100 days in a row, and 99 of those days you come home and your dog's there, and on the 100th day it's not. In this county, chances are it got brought to us.
Yeah.
Well, that's ceased happening. The impounds and the owner surrenders just plummeted in 2020. The bad news is that the state, and I don't know, I believe this was the case in most of the country, but Colorado stopped spay-neuter services for several months.
No.
Veterinarians were not allowed to perform spay-neuter. It was considered an elective procedure, and even the shelter, we were tasked at the very beginning in March of 2020. They sent a letter saying we need to have a list of all your medical supplies because this is going to get bad, and we might need to take your gloves and your masks and everything.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So they were like, if it's an elective surgery, then you don't need the PPE for it.
Yeah. I didn't participate in their inventory. I'll just say that. But because I was worried about my own people having the PPE for if we had to stay open and we couldn't get masks, who knew, especially that first month. I mean, nobody knew what the hell was going to happen. But shelters were able to quickly get started back up within a couple of weeks. So it didn't affect us, but we couldn't do it for the public, and the public veterinarians could not do it. So what happened in that whole summer and fall is that animals were just once again breeding out of control. And it really took, the phenomenon has continued because even into 2021, a lot of places were limited their hours or they were not taking on new clients. That's a big deal in La Plata County right now with veterinarians. And then top it on with a changing workforce, and it's even at the shelter now, it's impossible to hire people. It's really hard to stay fully staffed, and so all those things kind of backed up, and with the lack of spay-neuter, now we're seeing tons of animals this year. And the bad news is that all the people that adopted in 2020 aren't looking for animals now.
Right.
So not only is our income 17% higher, or our intake is 17% higher nationally this year, but the outcomes, the adoptions, the return to owners are down 20%. So you got a big differential there in numbers, and it's causing for overpopulation. So please don't buy a pet right now. If you're thinking of getting one, I always say the holidays is a good time to adopt. A lot of people are going to be home. Especially if you're still not traveling a lot because of various viruses and monkeypox and all of that stuff.
Y'all, the flu is out there right now. It's getting everybody. So just stay away from people. And
so it's a good time. You're going to be home. You can let your new pet acclimate, and we don't discourage you from adopting around the holidays. It's funny. There used to be a kind of a myth in the shelter industry that that said that don't let people adopt for Christmas because they're just giving it to their kids, and then the kids will outgrow them and they'll return them. I don't see that. I don't see a big return rate with the animals adopted at Christmas. And the way I look at it is, it's pretty hard to just take your kid's Christmas present and go, well, I'm giving it back to the shelter.
We've seen
that
some
would take
do
time.
it.
Yeah, they do it, and we can talk about if we want to get into heavy stuff too. I can tell you some pretty silly reasons for surrender.
We'll get it.
We'll definitely get into that. I thought that because you do see that, post
I do
or
too.
those emails that go around all the time that say I think it just to warnings. So
yeah.
Well, I know that there was like one shelter that I read recently, not in Colorado. I'm not sure what state it was in, but that they don't adopt out rabbits, for example, during Easter because for that particular animal there is actually a higher return rate.
I would say rabbits are the exception to that rule.
Yeah, because they're not as easy as you think. They're not simple. Oh, look, it's because you think because it's this big that it's going to be a simple thing when it's not a simple thing. Like they take, you got to give them a lot more attention than you think.
And the only thing that gets out of control population wise worse than cats is rabbits.
Is rabbits. Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people come in and they say, we got these 2 rabbits. We thought one was a boy and one, or they were both boys. And it turns out next thing you know, you got 20.
Yeah. When we got rabbits, we got them from a shelter, and we scheduled them to also be neutered, spayed or neutered, because we were like, you can't tell on a rabbit right away. You have to like really investigate. And so I was just like, let's just be on the safe side about it, because that is not a problem we want.
No, you don't want that problem, because finding homes for a lot of rabbits is tough.
It's very tough. Yeah. And you can't just let them out, because even though a rabbit is technically a wild animal, those are tame.
That's speaking of some heavy stuff, a lot of the rabbits we get, people just find like in their yard, or walking down the sidewalk, believe it or not, because people don't want them anymore, and so they think, oh, they'll just turn them loose with the wild rabbits, and they're not equipped for that.
They don't know what to do. They are going to get eaten immediately.
Very, very rapidly, yes. So we get a lot of them that way, believe it or not, and rats that way too. It's funny.
Yeah, rats are great pets, by the way. They're super smart. If you've ever wanted to consider a pet that's not a cat or a dog, I say rats are the way to go. People think icky because they're dirty, but actually, like, you can keep their environment very clean. They're very smart, and you can train them. And so that would be maybe a good companion for some people.
They're actually pretty clean.
Yeah, they're very clean. If they have the environment to be cleaned in.
Right.
Yeah. So tell us about some of the reasons that people surrender, because I know that when we fostered Karma is an interesting animal. We fostered Karma because she had been adopted out. And then they actually took her to our vet. So there was record of her at the vet that we went to. And then I guess the cost was probably too much. And then so they brought her back to the Humane Society, and
with a broken leg.
Severely broken leg. Like wasn't her growth plate affected?
It was.
She had to have a plate in her arm for a while so that she could grow properly her legs. It was a whole thing. And like, they didn't even, I feel like, did they even give you an explanation of her legs fucked up? Is like, right.
Yeah, that's basically, that's usually, I mean, most people are a little, they'll say they don't know what happened. That happens a lot. And I I don't know, she started limping. No, her leg's broken.
Like,
I think
fully
that's
broken.
I think that's how that conversation went. I can't remember exactly, but medical reasons are one of the most common reasons for surrender, because people get it's a thing socioeconomically. You're never gonna keep people that are low income from having pets, and you shouldn't. They should all. I mean, I grew up pretty damn poor, and I had dogs. We had dogs. We had. I remember my mom begging the vet to fix my dog's broken leg, and her getting an extra job to pay him off, and that's just what you did. And things have changed so much. In human medicine and in veterinary medicine, insurance, corporations, those kinds of things are, and drug companies, believe it or not, drive a lot of those industries, or that industry now. So when people go in with their animal who say, let's say it's been hit by a car, and it has a busted leg, and they take it into the vet, you're looking at, just to be seen in an emergency situation, if you don't have a regular vet, you're looking at probably $500.
At least.
At least just to walk in the door and maybe get x-rays. Then after that, if you get the x-rays, they're going to tell you the dog needs surgery or amputation. Most of the time they will recommend surgery, and depending on the dog's, when we're faced with that, we take into consideration the dog's age, the likelihood of success of the surgery, that sort of thing. We're not against amputation at all. But usually that option isn't made to the owner. It's usually you have to get this orthopedic procedure, and now you're talking $2,500 and up. And people can't. I mean, who can afford that?
Nobody. We got not in Durango, especially because it's going to be a little bit hiked. That price is going to be hiked up. And also everybody in Durango has somebody else living there in their house. So they cannot afford $500 for the dog's leg, you know?
So that's a real common issue, a reason for people to surrender. Some of the weird ones that I've heard over the year. Well, one of my favorites, and I'm a pretty sarcastic guy, if you know me, and kind of a bit of a smart ass, but I will tell people will come in and they'll say, "Oh, I'm moving to a new state and I can't have the dog." And my response is always like, "What state?" And then, let's pick on Texas. They'll say Texas, and I'll say, "Geez, what a crummy state if they don't let you have a dog there." And I know it's bigger than that's just an excuse that people use often. And it's all about how committed you are to that relationship with your pet. I remember personally being faced with, okay, I can sleep in my car with my dogs, or I can surrender my dogs and go live here. I slept in my car.
Mm-hmm. I lied to my landlord, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean.
And then I got caught and I got kicked out.
Yeah, but you find a way. You find a way. Or I say, don't make the commitment to begin with.
Right.
If you're not willing to find a way.
No, you have to, when you take on that responsibility of pet ownership, it's for life. It should be. Mm-hmm. And that means the extent of your life and that pet's life. And most of these pets are going to live 15 years. The last 5 of those are maybe not going to be the greatest, and they're going to be expensive because you're going to have to do medical bills and stuff. But you got to say, I'm willing to take that on, not give up when it gets tough.
Right.
I think
that's the saddest thing I've ever seen is when somebody brings an older dog.
Yeah, and sadly, that the next month at the Humane Society is a grim time in some respects, because this is when we do see a lot of elderly cats and dogs surrendered. And I've heard every reason from, I have company coming and the dog's starting to smell. And, it's like, well, you son of a bitch, wait till you start smelling, and nobody wants you around. And it's I always tell them, especially if it's a 13 or 14-year-old dog, I always say, and I'm going to get brutal here for a minute, but
trigger warning, y'all.
I always tell people, would you rather this dog die with you or die with me? And by that, I mean, if you're putting it in a shelter and it's 13 or 14 years old, if we can't find somebody to take it pretty quickly, in most shelters, it's not going to be around for a while. Our shelter's a little different than a lot, but there's not an available space for each and every one of these animals. And if you've had them for that long, you should. I mean, I would ask you to, instead of surrendering at that point, to do the humane thing and euthanize the dog and be there with it when it happens. But that's I'd sell everything for my dog's health. That's a good comment there, Bobby. And some people do, and some people just give up on them so quickly. And I'll tell you that the funniest reason I've ever heard for surrender, well, a couple of them. One, I was once told by a gentleman that his dog was a prostitute.
Well, okay.
Yeah, he said she's a whore and a prostitute, and she's a heroin addict. And I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "Yeah, she's a heroin addict." And I said, "Well,
Who's giving
how's
her the heroin?
that's what I said. How's she getting the heroin?" He's like, "I don't know, but she goes out every night and gets this." Now, clearly, he had some issues of his own,
Oh my goodness,
but
though.
this dog, I cannot remember her name at the moment, but she was a hound, and she had some pretty crazy behaviors, but she was not a prostitute nor a heroin addict.
Let's
Either
clear
one,
her name right now.
I will
None of
rule that
those
out now.
things.
She was just a under socialized hound dog who just needed a little love, and she ended up getting a great home. So
That's awesome.
in some cases, that's better. I once had a dog years ago, and this lady and I go back. I've been with a shelter for 20 years, and I've been dealing with her for probably 17 of those. And her reason for surrender was it's a 7-year-old black lab, and she surrendered it because it did not match her new couch.
No, ma'am. You know, it's funny because when I got Nugget, I got Nugget, and I had every intention of training him as my service dog. And Marcy, the trainer over at the Humane Society, she does classes. If anybody's listening from Durango, she does classes over at the Humane Society. You can definitely, she's a great trainer. But she says to me, she says two things to me. She says, number one, he's not going to make a good service dog. I just don't want you to be disappointed when he's not good at doing the service dog thing. And I was like, why would you say that? And she's like, he barks all day. It's that Jack Russell in him. He is all day just on hit. And I was like, literally, when I came in, I was volunteering. When I came in, he literally never barked at me. He would go out into the play run, and he would never play with the other dogs. He would go in the run, and he would go do his business. And then he would come and he would sit on my lap. And he still does that. And so I was like, I don't know. I think that's why I picked him. That's why I was like, this guy's going to do it for me, you know? And she was like, and also he is the wrong color, because I was just like black all the way. And it was true. He gets his little white hairs all over everything. I have to roller everything, but I would never trade him for anything in the world. I love him so
that's
much.
what I asked this particular woman. I asked her, I said, well, the dog was black. And I said, what color is your couch? And she said, it's white. And I wanted to call her all kinds of names and tell her she's an idiot. But instead I just said, well, what kind of person lives in Colorado and gets a white couch? It's kind of muddy around here. And she's like, well, my couch is white, and this dog is getting his hair all over it. And I said, okay, just give her to me. And that dog's name was Pepsi, and she's one of my most favorite dogs ever there. She got adopted to a great home. And so
awesome.
And I think a lot of times folks, they make up stories. Or they make like the guy that said his dog was a heroin addict.
His dog was doing too many things.
He couldn't handle his dog, and doesn't want to blame himself,
right,
or take any personal responsibility. Well, and you'll ask people a lot of times that bring dogs in for surrender, that they'll say, how did you try to fix this behavior? And they'll say, yes, I tried training. And I said, we'll say, did you go to a trainer? And they'll say, no, I Googled it.
It.
You're not gonna. Not enough, people. You can get some tips on Google, sure, but really, if you're having a dog that's having problems, go see a trainer.
Especially if you don't have experience with dogs or that particular breed, for example. There's lots of reasons why you might want to utilize a trainer instead of Googling it.
Yeah, because Google will sell you out.
Because also, like, well, since we're on the subject of training, not all people learn the same. Not all dogs learn the same either. Some are treat motivated or toy motivated. Some aren't motivated by either of those two things. You got to figure something else out. Some dogs do really well with clicker training. A lot of dogs, most dogs do actually. But some dogs just, they need something else. They need more. They need a little nudge, or some dogs need you to not be so aggressive with them. Like, it just depends on the dog and how they're going. And so a trainer can, somebody who's been doing this, who has experience in this area, who has actually gone to school, can walk you through and read those signs from that dog and say, okay, this is what your dog's doing. This is what's going, this is how we're going to kind of train that out of her. And I actually utilized several trainers with my dog Hope, and literally nothing worked until we got to Colorado and her whole environment changed. We got a new vet. We found out she had a tick-borne illness, and she had a thyroid condition. Like, we found out all this stuff. And it was easier to train her when she felt good, when she wasn't feeling gross.
True.
And so there's all these things that you have to consider, that, like, even though I have many years of experience dog training. I trained all my dogs when I was a kid. I worked with trainers. I wanted to be a trainer. Like, I did all that stuff. And still, we went to several trainers, and I didn't even think about the fact that, she's lethargic, she's overweight. We've done everything to get her weight under control. Is she sick? I never thought about that. And so, and she was a shelter dog. So of course there could have been an illness that was overlooked. When I got her, she had heartworms, for example. So of course, a tick-borne illness, not surprising. But anyways, so yeah, utilizing a trainer is really, if you're going to adopt a dog, highly recommended, highly recommended.
And not just hiring the trainer, but doing the steps.
Do it.
Training.
Go home and do it.
Lady could use more, but for me, it is a cost-effective thing, and I did hire. I went through a session, and now, I'm like, she needs more. And it's definitely, you have to do daily work, consistency, and find what works best.
Mm-hmm. And one thing to consider too, if you're getting shelter dogs, and there's a whole range of types of dogs you get out of shelters. Some of them are the best dogs. They're fully trained. People got into weird circumstances. Maybe somebody went to jail. Maybe an owner died. Maybe there was a divorce and just a wreckage of a family, and they just couldn't take the dog with them. But the dog was socialized and everything ahead of time. But then there's the dogs you get that have been chained up their whole life, or you get dogs that are, have been living on the reservation for a year and a half, and suddenly they're plucked out and put into, this community and expected to behave. And a lot of the dogs at the shelters, they've been through some kind of a trauma. And, until I figure out how to actually talk to them, you'll never know what those traumas are or what can set them off. So you should, take that into consideration when you're adopting a shelter animal. And, it used to be we would never adopt to college students or anyone. You had to be over 21.
Yeah.
And we still kind of do that 21 thing, but if you're under 21 and you want a dog, come talk to me. The way I look at it, you're old enough to vote. You're old enough to die for your country, drive a car, all that stuff. You should be able to adopt if you're a reasonable person. The whole theory behind it before was, oh, these people are not going to take good care of it because they're college kids or whatever. And it's like, you know what? Give them a break. And now I just counsel them. It's like, you're taking this dog home tonight. Don't have 25 people over your house. Don't let your new dog should have 3 months to figure his shit out at his new house.
This is critical information.
It's 3 days, 72 solid hours of just for the body, the endorphins and everything to chill out after going from the shelter to the new home. Then it's about 3 weeks before your dog kind of starts to feel comfortable. but you won't know the true personality, and it won't truly be comfortable for about 3 months. And that's what kind of saddens me the most, is when people will adopt a dog and they give up, and cats, and they give up, in 24 hours or a
Right.
week. You don't know, and you're not giving them a fair shot. So again, I guess, when you're going to adopt, take those things into consideration. Yes, you're going to have this pet for 15 years. Yes, you're going to have, your life's going to change. You have to make sacrifices.
Yep.
If you're super busy, consider a cat. Cats don't need us that much. Cats can, you can feed a cat once a day, change his litter box, and if you're not around, he'll be cool with it. Your dog needs you. Your dog needs to be taken out. Your dog needs exercise. Your cat doesn't. So consider, a more low maintenance pet, maybe. Or if you're not ready for all that commitment, a great way to help is to volunteer, to come down and volunteer at the shelter. Go walk. You walk a dog. It's good for you. It's good for you. It's good for the dog.
Mm-hmm. It helps get them a little bit better on a leash. They're like, when you walk a dog at the shelter, it's a whole different thing. It's a whole thing. There are not very many that are like good on that leash, easy.
They're learning.
Going. But
they're learning.
But also, they learn from that experience, and also just remember that they're cooped up in a cage. Of course, they're like, I'm out, So there's a question: at what age should I start service training when I get a new dog? So, is there too young of an age to start training? At what point would you want to do some basic training, and then when can they get into a more ideal circumstance for service animals? And not all animals are built for service. Just kind of remember that. I love Karma dearly. She's one of the smartest dogs I've literally ever owned. She's super smart. She's super kind. She's super loving. But also she has an attention span of a millisecond. So she does all of those things, but on repeat. So you got to be consistent without the repetition. Anyways, so what's a good age for that?
I feel like no dog is too young to train. Maybe 4 weeks, but if it's 4 weeks old, it should still be with its mom. Really, you shouldn't be acquiring a puppy from a reputable breeder or from a shelter until it's 8 weeks of age. That's when it could safely be weaned away from its mother. And start training the minute you take it home. I mean, it's good. Its attention span isn't going to be much, but you can start working on the basics right then. Sit, come, stay. All those things you lay down can be worked on at that age. Mm-hmm. For the service aspect of it, that's when I really would suggest you talk to a trainer.
Definitely would.
That's usually pretty specialized.
Yeah, especially for specific service too.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, especially for those. I used to work at a vet hospital, and we worked with a group called Canine Companions for Independence, and it was a place that trained dogs for the visually impaired and for hearing impaired folks. And they would start out with a class of 30 or 45 golden retrievers, and only about 4 or 5 of those dogs actually graduate. That's how tough it is. They have to be medically sound and temperament sound, and they have to follow every single command flawlessly. And that's really hard for most dogs to do.
Yeah.
Very hard.
It is. It's really difficult. I actually got lucky with Nugget because he, every time I look at him, almost every time I look at him, I'm like, how did he end up in the shelter? I am curious about his story. I don't know his backstory, but he's always just been so good for me. He's always been.
I'll look that up for you. I'll find out how he got there.
I'm curious about how he got there because I the minute I took him into the play yard, it was just this dog is. I called my husband right away. I was like, I know that we said we were going to wait, but also this dog is perfect. And then with Karma, you said when you were saying it takes 3 weeks, I was just like listening to you with that timeline. And I was like, oh, Karma. Oh my goodness, Karma.
Would it take her about 9 months?
It took her, we had her for 6 months before we decided that we were going to keep her. And she was still under your care for, I think, a full 9 months, because she had that plate. So what happened with Karma, you guys, is that she was brought in, she was adopted, she was, you know, at her home or whatever. She was brought back in, her leg was all fucked up, and they fixed it, right? And then she fucked it up again.
Yep.
And so then they were like calling all volunteers. They're calling all fosters. And we had actually 6 months prior lost hope, and Adoni was real super fucking mopey. And so I talked Walter into it.
Thank you, Walter.
And we brought her home, and the requirement was that she could not be like super hyperactive. And let me tell you, there are not enough drugs.
No.
There was just never enough drugs for this dog. I will be honest with y'all. I drugged her. I would give her cannabis. I would give her also her pain medicine, anything I could do, because she was so hyperactive. We ended up adopting her once she was all fixed. She was good to go. And then she was in our backyard doing something she probably wasn't supposed to be doing. And she cut her whole tendon in the same damn leg and had to go back under low activity status for another, I think, 6 weeks. And I was like, I can't with this dog. It was like 6 weeks. And then they took all the stuff, whatever and then she had to like lay low for another couple weeks after that. It was insane. It was almost impossible. But she's the sweetest, kindest dog. Her eyes are the kindest eyes I've ever seen. And
I love that she gives hugs.
She gives hugs, and she lives to please. She wants to please you. She does not know how to sit still to save her whole life, but she wants to please. And so she'll do what you tell her to do, like right away. But then she'll like squirrel kind of situation. But I'm glad we have her. She fell in love with Walter almost right away. So, you know, we weren't going to add a third to our tribe after Hope, but life happens.
Life
does indeed.
Yeah. And I'm glad now, because Nugget and Karma, they kind of argue like brother and sister, but they sleep together, and they're really close to each other. They comforted each other when Adoni passed away. And so they've just been really good for each other. I'm really glad that I have them together. So
we love it. It was definitely a success story. We kind of brought her out of the ashes, I would say. She is like a phoenix.
Yeah.
She rose up out of the ashes.
She sure did.
And she was a dog. I believe she was adopted as a puppy.
Yeah, she's not a lab mix. I just want to clear that up real quick. But when she was a puppy, she certainly did look like that's what she was going to be.
Yeah. She did. And but wasn't she like close to a year when she came back with a broken leg?
Mm-hmm. I think she was like a year, right at a year.
Right at a year, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it's you know, she's one of many, and that's, you know, that's one thing I can say proudly that has changed over the time I've been at the shelter. 20 years ago, that dog would have been an automatic euthanasia. There would have been no resources. We had no foster program. You know, even with her, we got her surgery done at a wicked discount compared to even what that owner would have had to pay.
They went to the wrong vet, first of all. They went to the most expensive vet in town, first of all, and got like
they did.
Yeah. So
and And can you imagine? I mean, those people, if they would have elected to try and do that and fix it, they'd have had to pay for it twice.
Yeah.
With her. And so really that's what a lot of times, we get mad at folks for surrendering and all that, but sometimes these things work out for the best. In the dog's case, I mean, it's again, I would counsel people not to get a pet if you don't want to make the commitment, but it's not. There are circumstances where if you can't, I would have much rather them surrendered her to us than just keep her, because I've seen that's end of the spectrum too, where folks do nothing until it becomes a legal issue. And by then, usually the animal has suffered so much that it's died or whatever. So, and that's that's the dark side of the work that I have to do, is that there's a lot of shady bastards out there too that don't take care of their animals.
Yeah. I'm glad that they brought her back. I'm glad, as much as we want to say, be mad at the people who surrender their animals for these ridiculous reasons, and we can be both. It also, if somebody had not surrendered Nugget, if somebody had not surrendered Karma, we wouldn't have them. And so I'm glad that they're in their rightful place now, and in a safe place.
And two, also, and it's hard. And all the time I've been at the shelter, I've gone back and forth. Like you first start working there, your tendency is to really be angry with the community, because that's where they're bringing you all these puppies and kittens and everything. And then you go to where you're like, okay, you're a little more sympathetic and back and forth. And really what I try to tell my staff and my volunteers is, it sucks they surrendered this dog or cat, but some of the hardest things that they've ever a cat. Here's my dog.
Wait. Go back to that. Rewind that thought again.
Okay,
you kind of pause. You kind of pause there.
So the hardest thing that people have to do sometimes is walk into a shelter, admit that they haven't taken proper care of their animal, or that they can't keep it anymore, and surrender it. I mean, and that's why I think a lot of times they lie to us. They'll tell us they just found it. Right now the population thing is so bad and we're not taking animals from outside this county. For years, we've accepted animals from outside this county, and now we're not in a place to do that. And, oh, by the way, the Farmington Animal Shelter, I think they might have reopened, but they've been closed the last 2 weeks because of a distemper outbreak. So that means that no place for nobody to surrender down there. So people have been bringing us their dogs. On the phone. We say we can't take it, but then the next thing you know,
and they show up
and they're like, "Oh, I found this in the Walmart parking lot." Well, I work next to Walmart. I go past there twice a day at least. I've never seen a loose dog there.
Never.
But these people find them there all the time. So
all the time.
And we know that's, or it's funny, like there's no fleas in La Plata County. There are no fleas that inhabit dogs and cats on a regular basis anyway. And people will bring us dogs and they're like, "Oh, yeah, I found this on Main Street." And you're like, "It's covered in fleas. You didn't find it on Main Street," And really, if you start digging, they usually found it, the middle of Arizona. But I'd rather be here for those animals. I know at a lot of other shelters, they don't get as many opportunities to live as they do with us. And so that's a good thing. It's sad right now how many animals there are and how few homes, but I think that with a lot of hard work, we'll get it balanced out again.
Yeah. Is there anybody that, and I already know at least one answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it because you don't ask questions that you don't know the answer to. Right. Is there anybody that you have, and I'm sure because you've been in this for 20 years, that you have flat out refused to adopt to?
Every stinking day. Not every day, but yeah, there's a lot of people I won't adopt to. we have an application process. It's about 3 pages long. It's pretty simple. It basically asks who you are, where do you live, do you own that property, and then it asks you like who lives in your house, what other pets do you have, and then maybe a page and a half or 2 pages of simple questions like where's the dog going to be at night, how much does it cost for a dog for a year, how much are you willing to spend on a veterinary bill.
Right.
Okay, if you lie on any of those things, and I find out, no dog.
Right.
I don't tolerate lying. I'd rather you tell me the truth. I once adopted to a guy who was completely homeless and traveled the country by foot, but he was a great dog owner. And I don't feel guilty about that 100%. But you know why? He was straight with me from the get-go.
Yeah.
And we had several conversations, and he did some volunteer work, and he proved to me he was stable and just chose that lifestyle. And I'm not going to judge him for that. And what a great life for a dog. I think traveling the country, and this guy, he had means. He wasn't poor,
right,
by any means. And not that should keep you from getting a dog, but if you lie on that application, you will. And the most common thing folks lie about is their place of residence and whether or not they own it
or rent it.
Yeah. And it's not that we want to keep you from getting a dog if you rent. We just want to know that if you're taking that dog home, like happened to you, Farah, the landlord's not going to find out and either kick you out or kick the dog out 3 days later.
Listen, nobody gave me that dog before I moved out on my own. She was mine already. And I moved out on my own, and I wouldn't leave her at my mom's house. So I took her with me. And then I was like, you got to do what you do, I ended up living with a friend for some months, and she had these Cocker Spaniels, and they every morning the light switch was like in the middle of the wall. You couldn't reach it, right? And every morning I had to like figure my way around piss and shit in this hallway, because her dogs would do that. But my dog had to stay outside while I was at work all day. Like, she wouldn't let my dog stay in the house. I was like, okay, whatever. Anyways, I got tired of it. I had to find my own place. And I just couldn't afford I couldn't afford a place that had that would allow my pet and had a pet deposit. And the place I could afford didn't allow pets. So I just kept it on the DL.
And hey, that's fine. I'm just saying that if you lie on that application, you won't get an animal. As far as the people we turn down, another one that'll get you turned down right away is if you tell us that you're going to chain the dog up. It's not cool.
Or it's an outside dog.
That, I'll make an exception if it's going to be like, we have some great Pyrenees or Anatolian Shepherds. Some of those dogs would rather be outside, and that's cool. But if you get a Chihuahua and tell me you're going to leave it outside, it's not happening.
Yeah. No.
If you tell me that you're going to only spend $100 a month or $100 a year on the dog, you're not going to get it. And then we look into their history. Some of it is just getting a feel for them. A lot of folks that are, let's just say, of advanced age, come in and want to adopt Karma or a dog like her. And it's I'll tell them no, because this is it's going to end badly for both of you. If I have a dog, for instance, that I know has a propensity for eating chickens or chasing livestock, I'm not going to adopt it to someone who lives next to a goat farm.
In a rural,
it's not. I'm setting the dog up for failure. If I have a coonhound who barks constantly, I'm not going to adopt him to a condo on 3rd Avenue. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
The dorms are another place. I'm adamant against animals, living in the dorm, and people have now they're like, oh, I need an emotional support animal, And I'm like, you're not getting it from us. You can come when you're out of the dorm. It's just, to me, there's too many things that can go wrong.
Absolutely.
Especially for shelter dogs. Like you know, take them and all of a sudden they're in a place where there's 100, 200 college kids. It's bad. It's bad for them.
You got to prepare.
We do say no.
Yeah. Good.
We do say no.
Do you ever like just got like get a feeling like?
Yeah, I do. And I'll say no. And sometimes that's tough, you know. There are certain places that we won't adopt to. And for that, you know, we get screamed at, called racist, or, you know, I once had someone who said I was discriminating against low income people. And again, I go back to the fact that no, it's just this particular place happens to be one of the more well-known low-income housing areas in Durango. And I stopped adopting dogs there when I sent one home. Two of them there within 2 days, and one was hit by a car and killed. On the second day it was there, and the other one, the first night it was home, was involved in a murder. So I was like, what the fuck? No more animals are going there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I still hold that to be true. It's changed management a couple of times, and I'm sure it's a lot better. But you know, it's what I'll do with folks if they live there is I'll have a conversation with them, because that's really, you know, I say all these things are hard and fast rules, but it's really more about getting to know the person. And again, like you said, you get that feeling sometimes that it's bad. Well, sometimes you get that feeling it's going to be, this is the best thing for this animal. So, and that's what people, when we do tell them no, don't seem to understand is these animals, once they become our property of the Humane Society, they're entrusted to me and my staff by this group of members who are basically, you know, the people that I answer to and the citizens of our community. But we're entrusted to do what's best for those animals. And sometimes if that means you get your feelings hurt by me saying no, I'm sorry, but I'm going to do what's best for the critter, not what's, you know,
that's your job.
Because I got to look those little guys in the face all the time, you know, and if we put, you know, 9 months of care into a dog, which happens, you know, karma's not really the exception. There's a lot of dogs we put that kind of time into. You know, I'm going to make damn sure that you're going to take care of her. And if you don't, I'll use every means at my disposal to get that animal back from you. And see to it that you don't get one from us again. And I always tell people, I'm like, I'm not saying you can't have a dog. I'm just saying you can't have this dog, you know, and sometimes, you know, that's the case too. I'll say, look, you want Fido over here. Well, Fido eats chickens and yada, yada, and doesn't like kids. And you have 4 kids and live in the country. I'm not giving you Fido. I'll give you Rover, because Rover grew up on a farm. He don't have any problems with chickens, and his favorite thing to do is kiss kids in the face. So you could take that one, and maybe they don't want that dog because that's not what I was looking for. It's not the breed I wanted.
It's not the aesthetic.
And that's something I would talk about.
The right color.
Yeah. But you know, I'll tell you, people come in all the time and I ask them before I even let them look. I'll say, what kind of dog do you want? And I'll say, okay, and they'll tell me, and I'll say, I have 5 dogs that fill that bill. And if I go back there and if those 5 dogs are not what they're looking for in their head, they won't take them. And it happens with pitties the most, because pitties a lot of times are some of the best dogs we have at the shelters, and people just have that stigma about them, and they don't want to, you know, their homeowner's insurance is going to go up or something like that, or, you know, their neighbors are going to think poorly of them. And, you know, I just brought one home.
I don't care.
Yeah, I just brought one home myself, and she's a puss. I got to tell you, she's not going to hurt anybody. My bloodhound bit her in the face on day one, and basically they sorted out their business, and now she's a great dog. So, and we didn't think she was what we were looking for either, but truthfully, she has been she has adapted perfectly, and she's exactly what we were looking for. So,
I've wanted to adopt a pit bull every time, like my next one every time, but that's just never how it happens. There's something, these other dogs just enter into my life. Like before I had Hope and Adoni, I was like, next dog, pit bull. And then actually there was a puppy at the shelter that I was volunteering at, and I was ready to take, but my landlord was like, no pit bulls. And I was like, it's 6 weeks old. I'll have it trained by the time it's big enough to do anything that you're worried about. And I was like, you met my last dog. You know that my dog is going to be trained. I'm not going to so they were like, no. So I was bummed. And when I'm bummed, what I do, I did the walk through the shelter. I just walk and see all the animals, and Hope was in there, and she jumped up on the cage and she licked my face. And I was like, I have to meet this dog. And she was like my forever dog. When I got her home, I was so proud. I was walking this shiny black dog down the street, and a truck passed us, and she like did this and got out of her collar, and she took off running. And I was like, she'd been surrendered twice for this. She took off running. I didn't know that until after. She took off running, and I did the thing you're not supposed to. You guys do not chase your dog.
Never.
Don't chase your dog. It's a thing that you want to do, but don't do it. So I start chasing her. I live in these townhouses. I start chasing her down the townhouse, and she goes around the corner. And then as I'm running up towards the corner, I see her peek her head out the side. And I was like, I got you. So I went and I sat down and acted like I was super bummed. And she just came back to me, and she never left me again. She didn't jump no fences. She didn't leave my side. She was like my dog at that point. And it was just like, I have a theory about dogs that run away. I feel like they feel like they're not in the right place. Like this
it happens.
This is a runaway dog that I own, and she never runs away from me, like ever.
I'll tell you that if your dog does escape, instead of chasing it, what you should do is, if you can get its attention, run the other way.
Yeah.
They're much more likely, if you have any kind of bond with it, if you start chasing them, they're going to go, woohoo, this is a game. Woo-hoo! And then you flip it on them, and you turn and you run from them the other direction, and they will generally chase you. And sometimes that's a good way to catch a running dog. Anyway. Yeah. Professional tip there.
Professional tip. That was great. That was a great tip. Yeah. I just, this was like, what, 17 years ago now? But I just went like running, and I was like, what are you doing? And I thought in my head, like, why are you running after this dog? And then her head poked around the side, and I was like, all right, I got you. And she was like, she had some dog aggression I had to work on, and none of the training we did ever worked until we got to Colorado. It was like a change in her environment. She needed it.
Hell, so, I was a lot more aggressive until I moved to Colorado. So
same. There's something in the air. I don't know what it is. There's something in the air. Okay.
It was California. That it'll make you aggressive.
Florida, same.
The South. Okay. So, and the Navy. This has been fantastic. Where can people go to find out more about you guys?
Go to lpchumanesociety.org. That's our website. You can see all available dogs that are there. If you need any of our services like low-cost spay-neuter or vaccinations, you can sign up for those there. And if you want to donate, this is a great time to do it. We got Giving Tuesday coming up next week. And that's a great day to help us out. Colorado Gives Day. people, we are La Plata County Humane Society, but we only get 20% of our funding from the city and county. The rest of it is dependent on you guys out there making donations. So if you can make a donation, please do. It
Or like
always
pick
helps,
up an extra
especially this
bag of
time of the
dog
year.
food when you're at the store. If for your local, for those of you not,
Yeah.
pick up an extra bag of dog food or an extra toy or like extra blanket. They can always use that stuff, especially this time.
You can donate. You can. And if you're local, come shop at our thrift store. Got a lot of great bargains there. And that does help to fund us. And yeah, if you're at the store, if you're buying pet food, buy some for us. We can always use it. Cleaning supplies, office supplies, all that stuff. So
I just
help
had the
us out if you
greatest
can.
idea.
It's the best thrift store, y'all.
Okay.
It's the best thrift store.
Here's the greatest idea. Okay, so we've already kind of discussed this. We're going to discuss it more and get everything into the logistics all worked out. But we are discussing doing a Queen Kitty calendar with La Plata County Humane Society. So we're discussing doing that. What I was just thinking is like, why don't we just the whole shebang? You know have you guys seen those TikTok videos where a bunch of white women go into like TJ Maxx and like blindly choose like pants and whatever, like their friends help them choose it, but it's like a blind choice. We should do that and pick 12 outfits each for ourselves from the Humane Society thrift store and do the photo shoot in some of those outfits. I mean, we don't have to be in all of the photos, but like maybe get in some photos with the cats, put our cans in there.
Yeah.
We should do that. We should
do something like that.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Okay. So it's just an idea I wanted to put out on the table. Thank you for coming on the show today. Before we leave, we have to do a would you rather. So everybody wake up in the comments. If you're here still, holler. But for our guests, okay. So let's see. Would you rather? Where was the one I was looking for? I had one and it's not the one I was looking. Okay. Would you rather be the best at something that no one takes seriously, or be well above average but not anywhere near the best at something well respected?
Me?
Yeah. Would you rather?
Question we're all going to answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you rather?
Repeat the question.
Would you rather be the best at something that no one takes seriously, or be well above average but nowhere near the best at something that is well respected?
I'll take the first one.
I was going to say, I will take the first one.
Just be really good at something silly.
Yeah, I feel that a lot about my job. I feel like
you already have a well-respected job.
I don't think it's that well respected.
I mean, you don't think so? You don't think?
No, I don't. I mean,
I respect you.
I respect you. I think my people here in Eagle Valley are very respected by our community too.
Yeah, I guess so. It's better than it used to be. I've been in it for a long time, and it used to be I wouldn't even eat. Like I wouldn't even go out to eat in Durango because people would be like, "Oh, that's that jerk that runs the shelter," and it was rough
to me.
Yeah, exactly. He charged me $100 to get my dog out or something. But yeah, I would go with that first one. I'd rather be like the best at something completely obscure that no one respected. I think being the best is important.
Is there something that you would want to be the best at?
Fly fishing.
Fly fishing. I feel like you could get a lot of respect though, being the best at being a fly fisher.
You could, yeah. You could. So something silly.
I think that's relative.
But I feel like
some people
I feel like I knew you were going to say that too, though, because I was thinking, is there a would you rather that I could include fishing into. Would you rather do this or go fishing? Your answer will probably always be go fishing.
Yeah. Most unless it's watch my Steelers play. I mean, that's the
Oh,
two
there you
things I
go.
do.
Would you
I
rather
would
watch a football game or go fishing? There's your would you rather right there.
I sadly have turned down to go I've turned down fishing many times to watch my beloved Steelers. Yeah, I have.
Okay.
Okay, well, there you go.
Last Sunday, as a matter of fact. And thankfully, at least that day they won.
Yeah, so you didn't have to be disappointed.
Yeah,
make it worth it.
I think I would be really good at because I feel like I don't need to be good in a career or something like that to be well respected. I think that I earn respect from people who know me and know who I am, just based on who I am as a person. So I think I would do something silly as well. I would really like to be very good at like stuff that requires more balance than I feel like I have, or more flexibility than I feel like I have. So like I would love to be like really good at like slacklining or something. or like extreme yoga. I could flex some shit.
I just thought of somebody who is the best at something totally ridiculous that very many people don't respect. Carrot Top.
Yeah.
Think about Carrot Top. He's a prop comic. Even the other comics don't respect him
at all.
No, but he's the best.
He is the best.
And he seems to be pretty comfortable with it. He was, but rest in peace, Gallagher. But Carrot Top.
He looks so ridiculous now, too. He's like this bodybuilder type.
Yeah, he's done too much.
And he wears eyeliner.
Too much blow.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, MJ? What is the silly thing that you would do?
The silly thing that I would like to be the best at?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What about
I want to be like, I know.
You're the best at like roller skate dancing.
So again, I'm like, I don't want to
I
being like, I would like to be the best at rhythmic dancing.
One last story before we go. One time I think I might have told this story on the podcast before, but I've told you about the time that I met the vapor guy, right? The vape guy. So I think we still follow each other on TikTok. Every once in a while he'll pop up and say hello. But one day I was sitting in a Discord full of like moms and stuff. And then little by little, they started dwindling down after this kid came in the room, and he's a young guy. He's a kid for sure. And so it's me and these other two moms. Right. And then, so this kid goes, do you want to see something really cool? And I was like, I always want to see something really cool. Like, I'm never going to turn down that if you say that to me, I'm going to be like, yes. And so I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'm never going to turn that down. And so he like backed up he was like in a garage. He backed up in the room, right? He has little like Brad vaporizer thing, the ones that, the little Brad boxes. And he takes this big puff off of it, and then he blows out some smoke, and some of them are rings. And then he starts like just pushing them forward with his hand. And I was like, I was encouraging, I was like, that's amazing. And he was like, yeah, I won second place in a competition. And I was like, hold the phone. They have competitions for this? And he was like, yeah, I got a picture with the first place winner. I could show you. And I was like, I mean, who is this guy? I don't know who this guy is. I mean, you could just be taking a picture with some random ass dude. I don't know who this guy. Like, I was like,
Can I get some pictures of him doing his thing? Yeah.
It made me think that maybe I should have more like Gen Z type or Generation Z people on to have conversations about things that happen now in like for younger people that younger people are into or whatever. Just because I have questions. And I was like, where do we do competitions for this? And he was like, there's a whole there's a whole convention. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah, vape convention. Why am I surprised by this? There's a whole convention for, like, there's many conventions for cannabis. We just came from one, which we will talk to you guys about. I promise we'll fill you in on all the details. Oh, I was so close to Method Man and Redman. Oh my God. Anyways, so not close enough to get a picture with us together, but close, like them on stage. Anyways, but yeah, I think it would be interesting for me, a Gen X, to have these conversations with, like, the differences between things. Like, whoever would have thought that he had a tattoo on his arm for his vape team. He tattooed it right on his arm.
Really?
He did.
That's crazy.
That's dedication. I don't know what that is. I guess. But I was so intrigued because it's like, what do you mean a vape convention? Like,
yeah.
What do you mean there's like a whole like trick competition? But of course there is. You see these people blowing out 4 rings at the same time and all that stuff. It's weird, but hey, to each their own. I'm not going to complain about it. It's entertainment.
That's right.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty interesting, like really freaking cool shit. And then I've seen some really absolutely like hype themselves up and you're like,
no, this guy, that was definitely that. I was like, oh, well, that's cool.
Okay.
I'm like looking around to see what the mom's reactions are going to be. And they're not participating in this at all. They're not.
They're like,
They're like, oh, well, we got to go feed the kids dinner. I was like, don't leave me here. But I think it would be interesting. Like, that was interesting to me. And that's something that was not of our generation. Like, we didn't even, what are you talking about? We were still smoking Camels and Marlboros. You know what I'm saying? Like, we weren't vaping.
No.
And I mean,
stealing Camels from the old man.
some of our friends could do smoke tricks with those, but like
with the
literally there was no competition for it. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
No.
It was just like a cool party trick. So yeah. Well, you guys, this has been so much fun. Thank you for joining us. We will definitely invite you back. If you ever want to do like quick updates on things, or if you're doing fundraisers and stuff and you want to send us the flyers for that, we would love to support that and advertise for that. And thank you for my 2 sweet baby angels. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
We have an interesting history and friendship, and I absolutely adore you. I totally do have mad respect for you. Because I've seen you in action. I've seen you deny some shit and work your magic too.
As you should.
And I've also seen you've also helped me through a few crises of my own. And I can probably never repay you for that, but I will continue to adopt and donate when I can. And we would love to let people know when you guys got fundraisers going on. We'll put it on our pages and stuff. So
thank you. Much love to you.
We have a guest coming on Wednesday. We didn't do any advertising. This show is brought to you, of course, by Queen Kitty Seltzer. Pop this kitty, put it in your mouth. This show is brought to you by CQ LLC, also a consulting and education company. We are licensed to do responsible vendor training in the state of Colorado. So give us a call. 970-426-5985 is our phone number. And on Wednesday, MJ, take it away. Who are we having on Wednesday?
We have Dallas, I don't know if I'm going to say it correctly, but I'm just doing it phonetically, Arcand. And he is a Native American educator. He does professional dance and the Native hoop dancing. And so I asked him, I said, if you would like to showcase what you do, we would love it. But if we're just going to talk about it, we'll send them people to his sites and whatnot.
Yeah, for sure.
And but we're gonna talk about the importance of Native American education and understanding, and why things like calling them the first immigrants is unacceptable.
Yeah, because we were the first immigrants. People look like us, me, white people, white as snow people.
Someone said that in a comment the other day in one of our groups, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? That there are people out here trying to make this a thing, and
No.
someone has not just straight slapped them across their face."
They should.
They
Y'all are
be.
lucky you are separated by technology and a keyboard is all I'm going to say about it.
And so we're so I've been following him, and he is going to join us Wednesday the 23rd.
Perfect.
Yes.
Oh, it's today the 20th.
Tune in.
What is today?
Today is the 21st.
21st. Okay, yeah. Oh gosh, I was making sure.
Lady.
You guys, as always, be nice to yourself. Put your mask on before assisting others. It's important. Yes. Love yourself the most. I'm telling you, this coming straight from the middle of my heart. No matter how much you love other people, you gotta love yourself first, and you gotta love yourself more so that you don't fucking get fucked over. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you, love
cultivate,
yourself.
Cultivate the love you want. Don't accept bullshit. Don't accept. Don't accept fake love. Bring love to you. If you feel like you don't have love, reach out. We'll spread some love to you.
We'll spread some love to you. Adopt, don't shop. And stay lifted, everybody. We'll see you on Wednesday at 4:20 Mountain Standard Time. Set your alarm, set your alerts, like, follow, and share. We love y'all. We'll see you on Wednesday. Thanks for hanging in.